my line was, I kept saying, Hashem knows my address. But I have to start globetrotting to find my husband. Hashem knows my address and he's going to send him to me. Or I get a phone call, Yafa, your husband is on my couch. Your husband is sitting on my couch. I was like, what's he doing on your couch? Send him over. On paper, it didn't really make as much sense as these girls who seemed to have had more in common with him on paper. Like they were Sephardi girls. I'm Ashkenaz, American. We grew up in completely different lifestyles, completely different cultures, completely different everything. Languages, from A to Z, every single thing about our upbringing was completely different.
What are the chances that a Mexican who a couple of years ago couldn't even speak English is going to marry one of the most popular girls in Flatbush? I mean, zero.
Well,
in a normal world, zero.
Intellectually, I kept saying, this is the guy for me. I know this is what I kept asking Hashem for. Emotionally, I didn't let myself connect. Because I was too scared that I would have to make so many changes in my life. Until one day I said to myself, Yafa, it's like you're slapping Hashem in the face. You kept asking him for this guy. Everything I asked Hashem for, he said, okay, right? Send me this guy that I'm looking for. Okay, here he is.
Welcome back to another episode of Stories of Hope. This week, we had the pleasure of featuring all the way from Miami, Florida, Yaffa and Rabbi Nisso Palti. This episode was the day after the marathon, so if I sound like I'm a bit worn out, that's why. Yaffa and Rabbi Nisso share for the first time a little bit about their background, what helped them evolve into the extraordinary leaders that they are today, a woman from Flatbush and a rabbi from Mexico. Stay tuned to hear their incredible story. And we have another exciting giveaway. Congratulations to last week's winner. If you want a chance to win $200 and answer the following question, what will you be for Purim? I'm not dressing up this year. Well, if you would dress up, what would you be? Comment below for your chance to win $200. But before we jump in, I first need to tell you about my favorite app, PZ Deals, still super hot on the market. If you've been looking for the best deals out there and wasting time scrolling, then you don't need to waste time anymore. Download the PZ Deals app, personalize it towards your interests, and take off all those annoying notifications that are wasting your time and just taking up space on your phone. PZ Deals is your one-stop shop, so you don't need to look anywhere else anymore. Download PZ Deals, and with PZ Deals, never pay full price again.
So you all know I'm a big fan of Couture, and I'm really excited because my friend is getting married. And in addition to having bridal gowns and wedding gowns, they also have evening dresses. So Couture caters to anyone. If you're the friend, if you're the bride, if you're the sister or the parent, they are the top industry for bridal wear. They customize, tailor, and have beautiful, unique pieces that are just sitting there, ready for you to try them on. Conveniently located in Brooklyn, New York, and Lakewood, it's just like the best place to go to. And what's super cool is if you mention Stories of Hope, you get 5% off your beautiful piece. So go someplace where quality is not compromised and service is top notch, so that you can look as beautiful as you deserve to feel at Couture. Check them out on Instagram to see their beautiful pieces, and check them out in your local city or drive down there. It'll be worth it to find that perfect piece that you've been looking for.
Hi, I'm Tzipora Grodko, and this is the Stories of Hope podcast. This is so exciting here in the beautiful Miami at the Altair Hotel. Thank you, Altair. We have the honor of hosting Yaffa and Nisso Palti. I think it's been exactly a year since I lived here last year, came to your home for one of the best Shabbases that ever went down. I never dreamed that we'd be on a podcast, getting to hear your story. I remember when you shared it at the Shabbos table being like, I think I even told you, Yafa, we need to share your story. And you said—
That was before your podcast.
Right, BCE. So I'm so glad we got to lasso you back in. And for those that know Yafa and Nisso, oh boy, do you have a treat in store. And if you don't know, then get cozy and excited. So we'll jump right in by asking Yafa, tell us a little bit about your background, how you grew up, and then Nisso, we'll go to you.
So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I would say in the typical mainstream frum world. I went to all the Beis Yaakovs and, did all the regular stuff. But I guess I wasn't so typical of mainstream. I ended up with this guy, and we'll get to that in a minute. There's so many parts to my story. I don't know how much we're able to get into it now.
As much as you can.
But that's my background. My background was growing up in Brooklyn, New York. I went to a few different high schools. That's a whole other part of my story, where I wasn't invited back to a few of them. So I eventually graduated from Machon Beis Yaakov, and that really helped my trajectory of life. It helped me, find my path and find where I was going. I ended up in Hadar Beis Yaakov. Mm-hmm. And I think going through finding myself as a teenager and going through so many different schools and finding myself in so many different ways, and then experiencing that in seminary helped me navigate a balance in my own path and in my own life.
I can't help but ask you if you could share a little bit more about the parts of your background that contributed to who you are today that you left out in the beginning. And of course, a little bit about how come you weren't invited back in some of the schools that you paid a little visit to.
So I was what one might call adventurous and energetic, which didn't necessarily fit into the structure of a school, right? So a lot of the teachers and the principals and, all the authoritative people, I do believe that everybody meant well. And I do believe that everybody did the best with the tools that they had, but they didn't know how to deal with somebody that was just a little bit different, a little bit out of the box, somebody who just enjoyed life. I was a super creative person, right? So everybody liked me. I had a ton of friends. I loved school. I don't know if you're supposed to love school that much. Maybe that was the problem. I just had a great time, but they didn't have a great time with me because of that. So, and eventually what happened was, when they started boxing me in to a certain type of person because I didn't fit into the box that they had created for me to fit into. So then I started living up to the name that was given to me. So if they would call me rebellious, I probably wasn't yet, but then I became more rebellious because of the label that was created for me. Right. So that happened in one school, then it happened in another school, and they would accept me because I was charming and I would know how to talk to the principals. And I would tell them things like, you're going to have to make a lot of change if you come here. And I would say, well, change could be good. Change is important for you. And they'd be like, well, that's smart for a 15-year-old. Of course you're accepted, But there were other things that just, for example, one of the schools I was in, I'm not even going to say which grade it was, because if anybody here is watching and knew who I was then and whatever, I don't want to, say anything negative about any of the schools I was in. But there was one school that I went to where the principal called me in June. And this was a small school. So everybody was very close. There were like 10 girls in my class, and there were only 3 classes in the grade because they were still growing. 3 classes in the whole high school because they were still growing. They were going to open up another one the next year. And so we were like 30 girls in the whole high school, and I was like best friends with everybody. And I came in and I have a leader personality.
Oh yeah.
And in June, the principal called me into her office and she said, we accepted you because you're a leader, and we expected you to lead the school in the right way and to be a positive leader. But unfortunately you weren't. So you're not invited back next year. And I remember at that age, I was young, I was in high school. And I remember I didn't say this out loud, but I thought to myself, now you tell me that? You know what would have happened if you would have called me into your office in October and said to me, Yafa, I see you're a leader. Let's see how we can work together and lead the school in the most positive way. You know what kind of leader I would have been then? Right? So I kept having these kind of experiences where people who should have believed in me didn't believe in me. And that made it tough. That made it tough to really find myself. And part of the issue was I had no issue with Hashem. I wasn't bitter or angry about Yiddishkeit, about Torah and mitzvos. I just had a hard time with the structure. And I couldn't figure out how to be myself and to use my creativity and to have fun within that structure that was set up for me. And then when I finally got to Machon, which is a school I graduated from, there was something about the acceptance of the principal, who unfortunately passed away just a few days ago. He was Nifter, Rabbi Olbaum, just on Thursday. But I owe him so much Hakar Satov, because he took one look at me and he said, I believe in you. I know who you are. I see your potential, and we're going to bring out the best in you. And he did. And that's where I was able to really find a way that I could be me, and I could be creative, and I could have a good time, and I could still follow the Torah and mitzvos and be a firm Jew.
To be able to see someone and to see their potential, not their flawed, undeveloped person that naturally they are, but to see their potential and nurture that person towards that person you believe they can become.
Yeah.
That's a game changer.
Oh, there's nothing like it. That's what every child needs. So I don't necessarily speak about this like, hello, Torah Masorah, if you're watching, bring me in. I'm more than happy to. I don't speak specifically to school administrators or principals or teachers about this, but I do mention it sometimes in lectures that I give. And if anyone in the audience fits that description, I hope that they're integrating the message. But there's nothing like it. I felt it so strongly in a few different instances throughout my younger years, where all I needed was that one person to see me and believe in me.
Who did believe in you? Because you're pretty amazing, Yafa. Who did believe in you?
Okay, well, first of all, I have to give a disclaimer. My parents always believed in me. Always. And at the same time, you also need somebody outside of your family. It's not enough to just, like, what was my thought as a teenager? My thought was, you're my mother. Of course you believe in me. You're my mother. Of course you love me. You're my mother, which, by the way, I don't take for granted. And there are some people who don't have that relationship. I don't feel that way. But I did. I'm like, okay, whatever. But nobody else believes in me, right? So I have to put that disclaimer in. But here's the interesting thing. One summer, when I was going into 11th grade, did I ever tell you this story even? I don't even know if you know the story. One summer, he's learning so much about me right now. One summer, when I was going into 11th grade, I was in Camp Chayil, which is the teen program of Campanos. And I had no school to go to the next year. I was there without a school. And there was one activity, and a few of the girls knew that, and I made some good friends that summer. And there was an activity one day where everybody had to split up according to what school they went to. That's the team they were on.
Oh boy.
And I was not in any school. And I remember standing there in the middle of the field, we were outside in the field, and everybody split up into their schools. And I stood there and I said, and again, most people knew that I wasn't in a school. So I just said, all right, everybody, team base Yafa. Who's coming to base Yafa? And like half the camp ran over to be on my team. And it was so sweet of them, right? But afterwards, somebody came over to me. She was somebody that I was becoming friendly with, but we weren't necessarily good friends yet, but we were really becoming very friendly. And she said to me, what's the story? Why aren't you in school? And I explained to her what's been going on. And she said to me, that's it. You're coming to my school. You're coming to my school this year. And I said, you're so sweet. Thank you. But I applied to your school last year and they didn't take me because I was kicked out of 2 schools. Now they're going to take me after I was kicked out of 3 schools? I don't think so. She goes, no. And I didn't know who she was at the time. I didn't realize that she was the principal's pet. Like she was the favorite person in school. I had no idea. She said to me, trust me. Remember, we're 16. We weren't even 16 yet. Okay. We were like turning 16. She said to me, trust me. I'm going to call the principal tomorrow from the camp office and I'm getting you into my school. So I deep inside, I was like, okay, she's so sweet, but whatever. Anyway, we get to the office. Oh, and we get to the office the next morning, but I have to tell you this part. I don't know if you know this about me, but I actually had a boyfriend at the time. Okay. And
now it's getting interesting.
And she said to me, I'm calling my principal now, stand right next to me because he's going to want to talk to you. But she said, I don't remember, there's no cell phones. We were at the camp office, the phone that looked like that. So she said, but one condition, you have to break up with your boyfriend. And I was like, okay, whatever. What was I supposed to do at that point? I needed to get into a school, and I called him and I said, okay, that's it. It's over. And he was like, I knew it. I knew we were going to go to camp and get all from. Anyway, she calls her principal and she says, I have this girl that I'm in camp with and she's wonderful, but she has no school to go to next year. He told her my name. He said, wait, we know her. She applied last year. We didn't accept her. No, you don't understand. You don't understand. She's such a good girl. She has so much to offer. And by the way, I forgot to mention before she called him, when she told me to break up with my boyfriend, she said to me, she said, why do you even need a boyfriend? Like, why do you have this boyfriend in the first place? I said, I don't know. I feel like, somebody likes me. I feel like I'm pretty. I feel like, I don't know, what are the reasons you want a boyfriend?
Yeah.
So she said, but why do you need that validation from him? You know how amazing you are. You know what a wonderful person you are. You know how beautiful you are, inside, outside. Remember, she wasn't even 16 yet. Like, the insight that she had was incredible. And then she called the principal and she told him everything that she had just told me about myself. And she said, I'm telling you, she's going to be the biggest asset to your school.
Wow.
And the principal said, okay, are you going to take achrayus for her? And she said, absolutely. She's my responsibility. And I got accepted. And then we became very close friends. Actually, I was in her, we went to the next, we went to school together and then we became very close. It was just an unbelievable feeling that there was somebody who believed in me.
Mm.
She was a girl my own age. And she was able to see things in me that other people didn't and that even I didn't see.
Yeah. Also, it sounds like she was a really good friend, because
Yes.
I think it's only natural that in friendships and social circles, we think about what's best for me. But someone that is very thoughtful and compassionate will say, well, I think I might know what's best for you.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to take a chance to share that. So, wow, Yafa, it's so powerful and beautiful. We'll pause you here. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I often find that it's not the silent woman that make history. And I mean, your actions, your audience, it all speaks for itself. So thank God you're not silent, because you've done a lot of amazing things. And
thank you. It's about learning how to channel your energy and your personality. And that's what I've been trying to do. So Thank you for recognizing and appreciating it.
So much so. Thank you. Nisso, please tell us a little bit about your background.
All right. So it's always hard to match my wife, of course. I was born in Mexico City. And my father was a rabbi of one of the big communities in Mexico, a community of about 1,000 families. And I went for whatever reasons, to secular schools when I was young, up until 5th grade. And because that was, the school of the community, it was a different era. Mexico was not nearly Jewishly developed at that point, like New York. So, So that's what it was. That's, the yeshiva was just like being created then, the yeshiva today in Mexico. So eventually in 5th grade, I did move to the yeshiva in Mexico. As far as the Torah was concerned, it was great, but socially it was very difficult. Very difficult. I didn't match at all with the rest of the kids and etc. I really suffered a lot. So by the time we came to 6th grade, 2 years later, in Mexico, that's where you start middle school. So before middle school, it came the conversation of where to continue. And I told my father that I wanted to go back to the secular school. And he said, he was crying, but he said, okay, that's what you want. I was suffering a lot. So I went back to secular school. I spent there my bar mitzvah year, 7th grade, I was there. And, but, it was socially much nicer, but it really wasn't it anymore. Something had changed inside of me. I was already a frum boy. And so there was, yes, the guys are great and everything, but we couldn't go to the same restaurant together because they went to a trade restaurant. I would sit there with a Coke in my hand. They would feel uncomfortable. We would go to a kosher restaurant. It was terrible. And they would pay so much more money. I felt terrible, They just we were on different paths. Nice people, but, just on different paths. I did my bar mitzvah. My parents brought me to Eretz Israel. I met all of my father's rabbeim, Rav Ovadia Yosef, who told me, you will be learning by me. It came true. Eventually ended up in Koilel of his son, Rav David Yosef, the actual chief rabbi of Israel. And Hamentzion Abba Shaul, etc. I think that the brachos of the tzaddikim and I don't know, Eretz Israel, I don't know, my father's tears. So I said, okay, I got to go back to yeshiva. So I went back. I endured another 2 years until 10th grade, which is when you start high school in Mexico a year later than in America. And then my father asked me if I wanted to go to, he had a very good friend whose son was in Israel in Baltimore. So he asked me if I wanted to go there. So for me, it was like, yes, because, I don't like this school. That's only yeshiva in Mexico, but I want to be in yeshiva. So that's it. So I went. And I didn't speak a word of English, literally. Like nothing. Me, no understand.
No comprendo.
No, exactly. No comprendo. Like completely lost. The yeshiva is a big yeshiva, has close to 700 students, a big campus. And I don't speak a word of English. And my parents go back and to New York because somebody told them that that's the best thing to do, to just drop me and go. If I met this person today, I have a few things to tell them. I don't even know who they are. Like, what good? They never told me. So I'm a little boy. I'm hardly 15 and I was not very mature and I'm just crying all day long. And then I called my parents, trying to reach them in New York, wherever they stayed. No cell phones. Back then, the house of their friends. Finally, after the end of the second day, I reached them. My mother picks up the phone and she's like, how are you? Trying to sound, animated, happy. And I'm like, good. And I start crying. Of course, she melts away and she's like, okay, we're coming to pick you up. Don't worry about it. And thank God my father was there too. So he's like, just, 1 second. Maybe he already had paid tuition or something. I don't know. But he picks up the phone and he says to me, Nisso, kol ha'atchalot kashot. Beginnings are hard. I didn't know there was a Rashi in Pashas Yisro back then. But kol ha'atchalot kashot, it's the beginnings are hard. And why don't you just hold on until Sukkot, where you're going to be able to come home anyways for vacation? And if you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, don't worry. Just come back to Mexico and everything is fine. And that was it. I held on. And by the time Sukkot came about, I was loving yeshiva. I found some friends who spoke Spanish. I started learning English super fast. Like after 2 weeks, I understood one of my first classes. After 6 weeks, I was understanding every single class. It's really, when you're young and you absorb everything. And Baltimore and Israel changed my life. No doubt about it. An amazing school. I love it. The Mechina was unbelievable. I spent 1 year in Bes Medrash. Then I went to Torah in Eretz Israel, which is yeshiva my father went to also because Rosh Zalman Neuerbach was there. So I got to spend the last 2 years of his life to know him and speak to him. It was amazing. And
by the way, that has something to do with our story of how we met also. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Rosh
Little cliffhanger there.
It's in the story.
Yes.
And so I guess we already get to how we met. So
so I'll pause you here.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing all of that. It's fascinating to hear your background. It's so challenging for a child to navigate school socially, personally, especially if they're not living in their country. And I feel like it helps all of our audience members really appreciate who you are today. And I want to give a shout out to Mexico City because I remember when I went to your house for Shabbos and I started to tell you what I wanted to do. And I know that we'll probably get to it a little bit in your story about thinking I would love to go to Mexico City and talk about these ideas. And before we jump into what your dating experience was like, in just a few minutes, can you help us understand, you know what, actually, we're going to leave everyone on a cliffhanger here. I'm going to interrupt myself.
Okay.
Let's first jump in. Yafa, tell us a little bit about what your dating experience was like.
I was looking for someone. I had some specifications of what I was looking for, but not, but I wasn't being picky about the person. It was just specifications of who I wanted him to be. So because of that, I did a lot of dating in a short amount of time. Okay. Meaning I wasn't older when we met each other. We got married when I was 22, but I dated a lot of people in that short period of time because I would date each person and I gave them an opportunity. I never said no after the first date. Almost never. We do have some great stories, but Usually not. They said, let me try 2, 3, 4, 5 dates just to see if maybe he had the potential of what I was looking for. And most of the time, he didn't. Now, most of the guys I dated were wonderful, amazing guys, but I was looking for somebody who was a leader, somebody who was a visionary, somebody who was an independent thinker. And a lot of those guys weren't. They were wonderful, but they didn't fit this image of who I wanted as a husband. So people used to tell me all the time, they would say, Yafa, the guy you're looking for, you're not going to find him here in New York. You have to go to Israel. Go to Israel. That's where he's going to be. They would always tell me this. I knew that my place in that moment was to be in New York. That's where my family was. My family needed me. My father was very sick at the time. My mother needed me. My siblings needed me. My community needed me. I was super involved. I was a teacher. I taught in 2 different schools. I was involved with B'nai Agudas Yisrael of America. I was involved with a million things, and everybody needed, and I was very busy and doing a lot of good work. So I said, right now, I know that this is the place that I need to be. And my line was, I kept saying, Hashem knows my address. I don't have to start globetrotting to find my husband. Hashem knows my address, and he's going to send him to me.
We'll be right back to our episode, but first, you have to check out Pizza Biza, making fresh hot pizzas on the spot by their professional chefs, indoor or outdoor in their pizza ovens, meat or dairy, plus full catering around the tri-state area and Florida. Specializing in events with several hundred people with no lines. You heard right. Full menu. You have to check them out on Instagram at Pizza Biza and visit them at pizzabiza.com. Pizza's my favorite food, so please invite me, Pizza Biza, on Instagram, and check them out at pizzabiza.com. These are the people you want to call. Pizza Biza, I'll see you at my next event. We'll be right back, but first, I want to talk to you about betterthanasegula.org. Better Than a Segula has an amazing Purim option that you want to take advantage of. Since the time of Mordechai and Esther, Purim has been an auspicious day for salvation, Yeshuos. As we say, Al Hanisim, in Al Hanisim, Bayamim Hahim Bazman Hazeh. We thank God for the miracles and the wonders in those days and in our times. Purim's also the day when the Jewish people are accepting the Torah with their full hearts. And so Torah learning on Purim is really, really special. In fact, many people have seen amazing things happen after putting special effort in learning Torah on this very, very special day. But it's super, super hectic on Purim, as you know, and Better Than a Segula offers an easy way to make the most out of this once-a-year opportunity with their Torah study program. On Purim, they have serious Torah scholars that are ready to learn Gemara or Mishnah for you on this exceptional day. And you can choose from a wide variety of options and grab this wonderful zechus for yourself or for someone you love. With Purim on Friday this year, the day is going to be extra, extra busy. But with the help of Better Than a Segula, you can maximize the impact that this special day has to offer. The power of Limud Torah on Purim can be yours. So call Better Than a Segula today to sponsor Torah study on Purim and do something that's really, really powerful and effective for yourself or a loved one. The number is 732-367-0729, or you can visit them at betterthanasegula.org. They're a non-for-profit, so your sponsorship is tax deductible, and you'll have the incredible merit of knowing that someone is learning Torah on your behalf on this special auspicious day.
Were people respectful when you said, no, I think I need to be here?
For the most part, sometimes they disagreed with me. They said, okay, well, good luck to you, but I think you need to go to Israel. And I kept saying, I'm sorry, I don't think I have to go to Israel right now. So it didn't bother me so much whether they agreed with me or didn't agree with me, because I felt like that was my purpose was to stay in New York, right? And I really believed what I said. I really believed that Hashem knows my address and he'll send him to me wherever I am. I don't have to start running around the world, right? So one day I was 21 and I was getting very tired from all the dating, and I'm very thankful for it. There's no question. I thank Hashem all the time that I constantly had phone calls. I constantly had dates. And at the same time, I also was getting tired from a lot of dating, right?
She was very popular. Let's just be clear about it.
I have no doubt.
Well, that's a blessing and a curse, right?
Yeah.
So at the other side of the spectrum was the fact that I was getting exhausted and I was really getting burnt out. And especially because I really, really took each date very seriously. I said, I'm not wasting anybody's time. I'm not wasting my own time. I'm just trying to learn a new person. And you know what it's like. Every time to learn a new person, it takes a lot of energy. And to get to know a person and to share yourself with another person, right? So at one point, I had a conversation with Hashem. And I said, Hashem, okay, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for letting the phone ring and for sending me all these guys. I feel loved. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm seen. I feel like you care about me. Thank you so much. And also, I'm really tired. So if you don't mind, can you just give me a little break? Like just pause. And I don't care. I don't need it for my self-esteem. I don't need to know that there's always another guy waiting for me. I'm really okay if you just get back to me when it's the right person. Like just let me know when it's the right guy. And it was so interesting because the phone call stopped. They stopped coming. And I really was able to rejuvenate and revive myself a little bit and kind of have that break was very important. About 2 months later, meanwhile, my parents were very worried. Parents were like, what's going on? Nobody's calling. And I was like, we got a thing. Don't worry. We got this worked out. We're good, Yeah. About 2 months later, I get a phone call from my friend, Shandy, who says to me, Yafa, your husband is on my couch. Your husband is sitting on my couch. I was like, what's he doing on your couch? Send him over. And I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. But what happened was, and again, I'm going to say this from my perspective, he has a whole other story. It's the same story, but we have different perspectives because we were living different lives at the time. But he had come to visit New York from Israel. He was learning in Israel. And it was before Pesach, so he was on his way to Mexico for Pesach. And on the way, he made a stop in New York to do some shopping. Buy a new suit, buy some matzah. He bought a wife. So there he was. And he was staying on a friend. Now, this friend had a neighbor whose name was Leah. Now, Leah noticed that her neighbor has this guy staying with him. And one day she said to him, hey, who's this guy that's staying in your house for a couple of weeks? So he said, my friend from Yeshiva. He's this, he's that. He's from here, he's from there. Leah was somebody that I had met just 2 weeks before that, or just very shortly before that. And from a mutual friend, we met each other. And she said to me, this also really amazed me that she remembered, that she cared. She said, I just met someone who's looking for a guy like that. And she remembered my name and she said my name. And his friend told him, and he's like, okay, that's nice. I have a whole list of girls that I'm here to date. Okay. I'll put her name at the bottom of my list. Okay. So that's what he did. I got to the bottom of his list. Meanwhile,
not really like that, but
you see my perspective.
I'll get my chance.
Right? I'll get his turn to say it. Anyway, a couple of days later, he goes to visit another friend of his who lived in Borough Park. This was Flatbush. He goes to visit a friend of his in Borough Park. And he walked into his home and he met his family. This friend has a sister who was one of my closest friends at the time. Her name was Shandy. So he's sitting there in her house. And that's when she picked up the phone to tell me, your husband is sitting on my couch. So she also said right away that this is exactly what Yafa's looking for. So 2 people, and she told him, of course, 2 people mentioned my name to him in like a week or 2 that he was staying in Brooklyn. At the time, he didn't realize the significance of that because he was like, yeah, but I already have all these other girls on my list. Let me just add her to the bottom. And I don't know, maybe he made a star at my name because it was mentioned twice. I don't know. Probably not even. But what he didn't realize was that I pointed out to him later, there are at least 10,000 girls my age in Brooklyn. So if 2 people mention my name randomly, people who don't know each other and don't know you, like that's a big deal. Like that's a thing, right? Yeah. So he didn't realize that till later. But in a nutshell, that's kind of how we met. And of course, there's so much more to it, which maybe I'll get to at some point. But that was my dating history, and that's how I met him. And when she finally did call me, by the way, what happened was behind the scenes, she was working out for us to go out. But he kept saying, no, I already have like every night full. I'm dating this girl and that girl. And by the way, all the girls on his list were girls who seemed to have had more in common with him on paper, right? Like they were Sephardi girls. He's Sephardi. Like they were Sephardi girls. They were like the daughter of a rabbi, or they had some Latin connection, whatever it was. I was none of those things because his father's a rabbi, Latin Sephardi, right? I'm Ashkenaz, American. My father was a businessman. Like on paper, it didn't really make as much sense as these other girls. So I get it, right? So he was busy. He had this one. He had this. He had all his plans. And she was like, no, but you have to date my friend. You can't go to Mexico for Pesach until you date Yafa. Like you can't. Finally, one day he calls her up and he says, okay, I'm available this night. I could see her. He already had a date with someone the next night planned.
It was that same day, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
We'll pause you here. Nisso, tell us a little bit about what happened from your perspective.
Okay, so I guess I was around 22 when I started dating. I speak to my mashkiach, Rav Gedalia Eisman, and that seems to be the right date, 22, 23. And some friends are saying to get married. I was among the Chutz La'aretz kids, Chutznikim in Torah. I was one of the older ones. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt. In Mexico City, what age do men typically start?
Oh, so men may start around that age, 22, 23. But here's the thing. Girls in the Syrian community, which is most of the Frum community in Mexico, they start at 16, 15, 16 at that time. I think today maybe a little bit later. So I actually, like Yafa said, you usually do look for somebody as close to you as possible. I'm Sephardi Turkish, actually. My family is from Turkey. So I'm not really Syrian, but that's not too far, maybe. It's Sephardim too. And there is no such thing as Turkish Frum people in Mexico or almost anywhere else in the world. So I'm already out of the box. And usually boxes are easier for Shidduchim. You fit into a certain world. And I really was very much out of any world possible. A Frum, guy from a family from Turkey. Mm-hmm. So then the Syrian girls, maybe, and they were Frum too, obviously. I'm from Mexico. So, that's the first place that you look. So I started in Mexico. I actually dated a girl who was 16 years old. And Baruch Hashem, that didn't work. And it really wasn't for me at all. I always knew it wasn't for me, but, you feel like...
Well, I told him it would be cheaper. He can buy her a Barbie doll instead of a diamond ring.
I didn't want to say that, but it's been said. So yeah, but yeah, maybe. And for sure, wasn't for me. You really feel like this is it. You got no choice because this is what you are. This is where you belong. This is the people that you can date. These are the people who are in my city, who know my family, and you feel like you're stuck a little bit. And then I actually had a friend from Argentina who also, like me, felt a little bit out of place. And he was flying all over the place. And I used to tell him similarly, not in the same words as Hashem knows my address, but I said, you cannot put your life completely on hold and stop living. So I have to be in yeshiva. I can't just be flying all over the place instead of learning properly in a proper place. I'm going back to yeshiva, back to Eretz Israel, back to do what I got to do. And Bezat Hashem has no limits. And so I dated this girl. We finished dating. It didn't work out. And there's more to that story, but it's pretty dramatic, maybe for another day.
Season 2.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And then I actually flew for Sukkot. I was Sukkot anyways in Mexico to Venezuela to meet somebody. And it was also very interesting because the parents of this girl didn't even tell her there was a boy from Mexico coming to date you. And they were like kind of Balet Shuva. I guess maybe didn't know how it worked very well. So the girl is like sitting in the middle of college, like just thinking I have years to go before marriage. And then just one evening, her father says, tomorrow morning, you're meeting, somebody to get married.
Who just flew in for you.
Who just flew in for you. So that didn't work out either, but it was a very nice experience actually to know the community in Venezuela and to be there and whatever it was. And then went to Eretz Israel, dated a few girls, and always very much like somebody like out of the box. And then I'm going to New York right before Pesach, like right after Purim, to give myself some time exactly for Shidduchim and whatever. And then one friend suggests somebody that didn't work. And then there was this list that I had. Actually, Leah is the one who gave me some of those names. And yes, some of the other girls seemed to be more on paper. Who was the daughter of a rabbi, this and that. And So the girl from the Latin background, she wasn't available. She didn't want to go out. And then the girl from the daughter of the rabbi, they are like, okay, but he's Sephardi. So I first said, I was dan lekaf zchus, lekaf zechut. And I said, look, it could be, I understand that it could be some Sephardim that are so culturally different that is really hard. It is hard. So maybe they're thinking of, I don't know, some Iraqi guy from who knows where. And the truth is that we are Sephardi, but we are the most Ashkenazi of the Sephardim, the Turks in general.
Yeah. Well,
So,
because have in mind, just geographically, Turkey is European. It's not an Arab country like some of the other Sephardim come from. So they have a little bit more of a European mentality, a little bit of a European culture.
And I had been for 10 years almost in Ashkenazi yeshivas. I knew, the whole lingo and everything. So I told them, I said, I'm like an Ashkenazi with a few different minagim. That was it. And then they get back to me and they said, we need to think about it. When they said that, I was really disappointed. The daughter of a rabbi, if this is his ashkafa, if I am pasul because I am Sephardi, because I'm not Ashkenazi, I don't want to be with that family. That same day, I called my friend, Shandy's brother, and I said, if that girl that you told me about, that yes, it was mentioned twice, and my friend, David, was very excited because it was mentioned twice, but even though I'm Sephardi, I'm very not superstitious, like zero. So I'm like, I gotta go, keep on going. I said, if she can go out with me tonight, it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
That's right.
Then tonight, it was a Thursday, we're on. And they called her up.
Well, have in mind. So she called, that was like 4:00 in the afternoon. So she called me up. Now I was a teacher for young people.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone?
Oh.
There's a lot, as we always talk about on Stories of Hope, there's a lot of unspoken rules. This kind of person can only marry that kind of person. This kind of class can only be with that kind of class. What would you say to someone that feels like, these are my rules, and if someone doesn't fit these boxes, they're not good enough, or they're not someone we want to even consider? What would you respond to that sort of mentality?
So first of all, we are a proof that even though we have a lot of things that are different, a Mexican Sephardi with an American Ashkenazia is like, what's going on over here? And you need to stick to what's really, really important. We need to know that everything else is just an other layer of who we are. It's superficial. Being Ashkenazi and being Sephardi is superficial. We are Jews. What unites us is Torah, is mitzvahs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And our values.
I was looking for a girl who had Ira Shamayim, Midos Toivos, and a good Ashkafa. And you know what? If that girl was Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Teimani, or whatever else, then whatever else. If she lived in New York, in Australia, in France, or Mexico for that matter, that didn't matter as much. What mattered really was what's deep, what's important in life. That doesn't change, actually. That keeps on being important in life always. And life is a journey, and you want to be together in that journey with somebody who really shares what's important with you.
Your values,
So don't get stuck, don't get stuck with those things that they really aren't that important.
Yeah. I was going to say, sometimes we do. We get stuck on the superficiality so much that we don't even give ourselves a chance to see what the inside is all about and what the important things are all about. And we realized that after we got married, we were saying how fascinating it is that, how this is really something that's so external and so unimportant, the Ashkenazi, Sephardi, or whatever it is, or even our cultures, our culture differences, because we grew up in completely different lifestyles, completely different cultures, completely different everything. Languages, from A to Z, every single thing about our upbringing was completely different. And we get married and we kept Shabbos the same way, a little different minhagim here and there. All of the Torah and mitzvos were exactly the same. Everything was the same. And we were just fascinated because for him, for his entire family, for generations back, they're completely Sephardi, right? There was no one in his family Ashkenaz until he married me. My family, we were Ashkenaz from Adam Arishon because he was Sephardi. He was Ashkenazi, I'm sorry, right? So all the way back to, I'm the only Sephardi in my family that we know of, him, me, now, whatever, converted. But it's right. And it was just fascinating that everything was the same. Everything, our values, our Torah, our mitzvahs, it was just mind-blowing. So those are the things that are important.
You know what? I'm not saying it's not easier. It is easier to find somebody who comes from a similar background and culture, and etc. Easier it is. But we're looking for good, not for easy.
That's right.
And when you have the middle stables that you need to have, you need to have, you overcome those differences, and ultimately you end up so much better.
Yeah. It almost seems like maybe it's an illusion of control, that this sort of lifestyle, this sort of person, this sort of background, it's predictable. So I have this illusion that I'm going to control the lifestyle I want, and it's familiar. And maybe there's also the concept of social expectations or the fear of being judged. And all of that is not MS.
Well, rejection always stems from fear, right? I'm scared of being different. I'm scared of what people are going to say. I'm scared of, not doing what I'm used to doing, getting out of my comfort zone, right? It all comes from fear. So this idea of somebody who's so different than me, it could be scary for people.
There is that. And sometimes it's also ego. What I am is the best. You know why? Because I am that. If I am Sephardi, that's the best. If I'm Ashkenazi, that's the best. If I'm from New York, that's the best. And whoever is like me is the best. And that's not necessarily true. Everywhere you will find people who are good and people who are not as good. And that's not going to guarantee anything in your life. And we need to look deeper.
Do you think more people would meet if the world was, I don't even want to use the word open-minded. I want to say had more clarity with MS. Do you think more people would meet?
100%.
Absolutely.
100%. And so many people will be surprised at seeing people who you didn't expect to be a good match with you, and who end up being truly amazing people with whom you can actually build a future and a family.
Absolutely. No question about it.
And another thing I want to ask is, one of the questions I get asked the most, there's a lot, but one of them from people all over the world, from Panama, from London, from Israel, out of state, out of town, out of the country. Hi, Tzipora. Do you think I should move to America in order to meet someone? Do you think I should leave my hometown where I'm comfortable, where I'm confident, where I love my lifestyle, I love my routine? Do you think I should leave in order to meet the right person? I'm curious to hear what you both would say to that question, especially highlighting your story where Yafa did not have to leave and you took a pit stop.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, goes back full circle to the fact that Hashem knows my address. He literally ended up on my doorstep.
Literally.
He was just visiting, ended up on my doorstep.
It's got to be.
Right?
It's an important question. It's not easy. So my experience was that I was able to continue doing what I was doing. And then in just a vacation, just stopping off in New York, I was able to find my partner for life. But maybe for other people, and maybe people who have been longer in Shidduchim, it's not that easy. So I'm not minimizing even the temptation to do it. I do think that if there is room to move somewhere else at some point, it may be. But what I said before needs to be true. You need to continue living and building your own life. You're not in this world just to get married. You're in this world to make out of yourself the best person possible and come closer to Hashem. And that can never stop. And who wants to date somebody who is not living, who's not truly alive? You need to continue living, continue doing, continue growing, and you need to be in places where that's possible. So maybe, yes, it may be a strategic advantage at some point. I'm in yeshiva in Israel, so maybe I can be in yeshiva in New York, in Lakewood, and learn very well there too. And there will be more opportunities. It's probably true. It may be a smart thing to do, but you for sure need to continue with the life, and you cannot just hold it.
Yeah.
If you're getting married or know someone getting married, let's talk about one of the most meaningful parts of a Jewish wedding, the kesubah. For some people, you may have seen it just as a regular piece of paper, but this is actually a symbol that represents the harmony, the beauty of your relationship. Ketubah.com takes your kesubah and turns it into the beautiful piece of art that it really is. With over 500 different designs and artists from all over the world, you can personalize the perfect kasuba of your dreams with a team that works intimately with you, making sure that your design and your words are exactly what you want. Katuba.com guarantees a kasuba that's probably better than you even dreamed. Get this beautiful design as a gift or for yourself from Katuba.com. For so long, we've been taught to believe that you need to wait for things to change in order for life to get better. And you deserve to live the life of your dreams before things change. And that's what Live Better Academy is here for, enabling you to enrich your life by exploring the 5 core areas that contribute to your fulfillment and happiness. This course is here to make sure that you no longer need to wait. Exploring spirituality, health and wellness, recreation and soul, social support and environment, and your profession and ambition, my course helps you understand what you're missing, explore any gaps that need areas of improvement, and truly understand what you need to do to create the life that you deserve. It's a 5-week course, so you have to be fully committed. But the easy part is that it's all virtual. You can access it anywhere and anytime. It includes pre-recorded classes, intense coursework material to take the information, turn it into application, and ultimately transformation, and a live group class, which includes me and your peers. It's truly extraordinary, and I want you to be a part of it. So if you're interested, click the link below to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if it's the right fit for you, or send a quick text message to the number below to schedule your free 15-minute consultation. I cannot wait to meet you and be on this journey with you so that you can finally live life better.
This is like, you know how I call it the waiting room versus the living room. Right?
Please share with everyone who hasn't heard that reel yet.
Okay.
I love it.
Thank you. So that's the thing. You know, it came from a comment that somebody said to me. And by the way, it was a friend of mine, and it came with so much compassion. But she was just checking in on me, and she said, "Hey, how's it going?" She knows that we have 3 daughters who are dating, and
3 incredible superstars who I asked if I could be adopted into the sisterhood when I met them.
And you are, right? And you are. And, yeah. Oh, we know. We love you. And so she said to me, you know, "How's it going?" And then she continued by saying, "I know that the waiting room can be very challenging." So I responded to her by saying that we're not in the waiting room. We're in the living room. We don't wait for the next stage of life to happen. We live our lives fully in whatever stage of life we're in. And what's important to understand is that, you know, first of all, we think that happiness is dependent on a specific occasion, a specific event, a specific thing, person, but it's not. If I can't be happy where I am right this moment in my present life, what makes me think I'm going to be happy when something else happens? Because then I'll still be waiting for the next thing and the next thing. It's a rat race, right? So we're not in the waiting room. We're in the living room. We're living our lives fully. And I said, my daughters are also living their lives fully, becoming their best selves so that they can welcome their husbands when Hashem decides it's the right time to meet them. Right? So we don't live our lives just waiting and waiting for the next stage. We have to make sure that we're living fully wherever we are. So now there has to be a certain level of hishtadlus to be put in, no question about it. But every person's hishtadlus looks differently. For some people, it might mean moving somewhere if it's going to be the best thing for them. And for some people, it might mean going to visit someplace, like that's what he did. And what does hishtadlus mean? Hishtadlus is doing whatever I can do within a reasonable boundary, right? What is reasonable for me to do right now? Whatever makes the most sense for me personally, what's for my life and for my future. So that's why I think a certain level of hishtadlus is required. So it doesn't mean that, no, I'm going to be stubborn and I'm just going to be who I am and where I am. And yeah, Hashem knows my address, but I'm not going to make any effort, right? There has to be an effort. And that is very, very personally dependent.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing between the two of you is that it's not this isolated scientific concept that if you move, the likelihood are that the stats would go higher, that you'd meet someone sooner, but rather your job here is to try to become the best person you can possibly be, to try to create the best life for yourself. And we're always investing effort. And if we have this illusion that something or some place or some version of success will give us happiness, we'll likely very quickly be unhappy because we'll be in this rat race. And we always need to invest hishtadlus while recognizing that it should still be an investment in our self-development, in our happiness, not hishtadlus that makes us feel anxious and isolated and lonely.
Exactly.
In every area of life, there is a primary objective and a secondary objective. The primary objective of life is to become our best selves. That is what we're in this world for. To build ourselves up, to work on our midos, to use our talents, to perfect our weaknesses. That's what we're here for. Marriage is one way, it's one path to help us with self-perfection and with self-improvement, rather.
A very important.
It's a very important
tool.
part. Yeah, it's a very important tool. But when we mistakenly think that marriage is the primary objective, instead of it being the secondary objective, and we lose sight of the primary objective, that's when we fall into desperation, or we fall into making changes in our lives that aren't really serving us, or marrying the wrong people, or whatever mistakes we can make when we think that's the primary objective.
And mostly we cannot forget that Hashem is unlimited. And you're putting limits on Hashem. You're saying, he can only do it here. He can only do it there. He can only do it this way. And there is no such thing. What are the chances that a Mexican who a couple of years ago couldn't even speak English is going to marry one of the most popular girls in Flatbush? I mean, zero.
Well,
in a normal world, zero. But, you know.
And from my perspective too, I was, certainly a little bit more open-minded, I guess, to even date him. Of course, it didn't even cross my mind. People said to me, your parents were okay with you marrying a Sephardi? Gently, I'm like, I didn't even know he was Sephardi until it came up somehow. It wasn't even a thought in my mind. I couldn't care less. To me, I was so much more focused on who he was as a person, his values and his midos tovos, his yiras shamayim. Those were the things that were important, right?
Yeah.
The accent.
That's always fun. Right? I didn't understand half the things he said, so that was nice.
That's why.
Which reminds me, by the way, it wasn't so simple. Even after I said, yes, I'll date him. And it was difficult. I had 2 hours to get ready, 4:00 in the afternoon. She calls me up. She goes, okay, my brother's friend can date you tonight. Can you go out tonight? And I was literally on the floor. It was color war in school. I was a teacher and I was painting from head to toe. And I was like, okay. I said, what's his name? Do we even know his name? My friend wasn't sure what his name was. Because listen, he has a very strange name, right? I'm used to dating guys like Maishi Friedman, Chaim Schwartz, and his name is Nisso Palti, right? Sounds like an item on the Japanese food menu. It's a sushi roll, right? Oh, like a Nisso Palti, right? Make it well-to-do. So
thanks. Love you too.
So my friend wasn't sure what his name was. She was like, it's like Nissan Paltio, maybe?
Nobody ever heard
nobody
of
were Ashkenazing it.
They were literally
exactly.
Ashkenazing it.
Exactly.
They were Ashkefying it, right? I really wasn't sure, but I'm like, but she said, no, but he can go out tonight.
It doesn't matter what his name is.
I don't care what his name is.
Could
you go out with him? So I thought to myself, obviously I did zero research. I'm like, okay, he's Jandy's brother's friend. He's not a serial killer. Let me go out with him and let's just see what it's all about. Remember, this was my first phone call in 2 months after me asking Hashem to give me a little break.
Maybe a cartel guy from Mexico, but not a serial killer. So it's okay.
You think I even knew about those things? I was so naive. I was in my little, I had no idea what Mexico was. I was like, what state is that in? I had no idea, right? But then, then we dated. And even that wasn't simple either, our dating. Well, for him, it was more simple than it was for me. But even for him, it was, there were complications in terms of, he always had that ticket overhead. He's like, should I go back to Israel after Pesach? Should I go back to Israel? I'll come back to continue dating you in New York. And I was just like, that was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
We had 3 dates before he went to Mexico. And they were nice. They were good. He was literally, he was exactly what I was looking for on paper for sure. But I was like, wait, but maybe it won't work. Maybe he should go back to Israel. I am responsible for this whole.
That's a very important point that we may want to emphasize. And that is that, so comes Pesach, I go back to Mexico for just for Pesach, because I was in a rush to get back to continue dating Yafa. And I realized right away that there was somebody very special over here that I for sure wanted to pursue. to continue dating and maybe marrying her, etc. And then another 10 days go by after Pesach, and it's Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and that's when yeshiva start in Eretz Yisrael. So what should I do now? Should I stay in New York? Should I go back to Eretz Yisrael? Put it on hold? Who knows? Like, what should I do? I knew I was ready to say yes, and I knew that she wasn't. So I called one of my rabbeim in Eretz Yisrael, and I asked him what to do. And he told me, give her an ultimatum. It's either yes or no. It's either now or never. That's it. Just.
Could you imagine? No, he didn't tell me this. We were dating.
No,
this was when we dated like 6 times or something, right? 6 or 7.
6 or 7. That's where it was.
Yeah.
But it was, and he said, I don't really know her, this and that, but, perhaps that's what I would do. So I hung up the phone, and, this is a big lesson for all of us, that when it comes to advice from a rabbi, from the Torah, at the end of the day, it's our life. And we know what we're going through. And there's always a lot of things that the person I'm asking doesn't know. And they're not Nevi'im. They just don't know everything automatically.
Which is why, by the way, it's important. Asay lecha Rav is so important to have a Rav that you are very close with, who knows you very, very well, because then you would probably get better guidance also, because he really knows you. So it's important.
So I thought to myself, I said, how arrogant of me to come over. It's not like she's deciding where to go tonight for supper. She's like making the most important decision in her life. And she's a serious person. She's not playing around with me. And if she needs a few more days, a few more dates, who am I to all of a sudden come with ultimatums? So I said, I just disregarded that. And I said, I'm not going to do that. I just can't. And this is also very important for me. So I'm not going back to yeshiva right now. And if I end up going back to yeshiva a month later, so you know what? Nish keferlach.
Yeah.
This is really important. And that was it. I did. She only found out about ultimatum once we were already engaged. And
he asked me after we were engaged. It was one of the first things he asked me. I think he needed to know. He said, this is what this Rebbe of mine told me to do. How would you have responded if I would have given you an ultimatum? And without missing a beat, I said, I would have said no. I'm not going to feel pressured into marrying you.
Lo aleinu.
Right? I need to make the decision. I need enough time to make the decision for myself. And I think that sometimes we do feel pressured. Shadchanim pressure us, or parents pressure us, or other people pressure us into...
As if you're an avocado that's going ripe, and then it'll be
has
gone.
a few seconds of a ripe life. Right? I believe so much in taking time. I needed more time. I had to be sure. And for me, it was a major decision. For anyone, it's a major decision, of course. But I had the added element that he was so culturally different than me. And I knew that if I married him, I was going to have to make so many changes in my life. I knew that I would never live in New York again, most likely. I didn't think I'd ever live in the US again.
I tried explaining
Miami,
that to her. I said, look, I'm not going to live in Brooklyn. I have nothing to do in Brooklyn. We're going to Eretz Yisrael. We're going to learn there. We're going to be in Koilel. And then most probably my future is somewhere that they speak Spanish.
Mexico, probably.
Little did I know that there was Miami too.
But that was much later.
Future, but we had no idea.
But we lived in Mexico. For those of you who don't know, we lived in Mexico for 11 years. Like, I knew that my future was Eretz Yisrael, Mexico, Spanish, change all my minhagim, change my havara of speaking. I went from soft to tough. And you know what's interesting? Even the little tiny nuances of change, even going from Good Shabbos to Shabbat Shalom, sounds so insignificant, but it wasn't, because every change that I made was another separation of my childhood to me, of my identity to me. It was another, I lost that part of myself, right? So I knew, I
would say that at the end, you didn't even lose it. At the end, what really happened was because you remained who you were. Exactly.
I just expanded.
And it became so much deeper, actually.
1,000. Now I know that. But it took me a bunch of years to realize that. But at the time when we were dating, those were the heavy thoughts that I didn't allow myself, you know this. Intellectually, I kept saying, this is the guy for me. I know this is what I kept asking Hashem for. Emotionally, I didn't let myself connect. Because I was too scared that I would have to make so many changes in my life. Until one day I said to myself, I said, Yafa, it's like you're slapping Hashem in the face. You kept asking him for this guy. Everything I asked Hashem for, he said, okay, right? Send me guys to date. Okay. Give me a break. I'm tired. Okay. Send me this guy that I'm looking for. Okay, here he is. Okay, but you're going to have to make some changes. No, I don't want him anymore. Right? I felt like, 1 minute, I could marry any guy in New York that I've been suggested to, who wants to marry me, of course. But, there were so many options, and I can stay here and probably have a wonderful life with them, but it was going to keep me much smaller. I was looking for a bigger life. I was looking for growth. I was looking to get out of my comfort zone without wanting to take the risk of getting out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. And you're highlighting something so powerful. The Jewish people, I'm begging you. Something you're highlighting is that time brings clarity. Pressure does make diamonds, but time gives relationships clarity. Please eliminate the pressure in dating. People need time to have clarity, to choose if this is the commitment I want to spend for the rest of my hopefully happy life. Please don't force someone to make a decision that was premature, because I get so many messages of people who unfortunately are no longer married, who unfortunately felt pressured, who sadly felt like, if I had the time, this is not a decision I would have made. The rush is not necessary. Please, let's eliminate pressure. Please. It's not helpful. It's really destructive. Time brings clarity.
Amen to that.
Can never be 100% sure. You're not a Kadosh Baruch Hu to know that this is the right person for your daughter, for your son, etc. And you need to have a little bit of trust in them, and you need to give them a little bit of space. There's a difference between, trying to guide them and trying to, work it out with them and try to see what their questions are, what they're not, and pressuring them and pushing them into something that on paper you think is right. Very often you haven't even met that person, or maybe for 20 minutes. And you don't even know who they really are, and the reality that your daughter or son is going through.
Right.
So you need to respect that.
I think it comes from a good place. It comes from, but it's a little misguided. It comes from a place where we know we're not supposed to delay when it comes to a shidduch, right? Don't waste time. Act with zrizos, go get it done, make it happen. But that doesn't mean to act with pressure. It means,
That's only once it's clear. Once it's clear. Close the deal.
Exactly. That's it. Once you understand, once you have that clarity and that's it, this makes sense, this is what we're going to do, then of course move and make it happen. But there's a difference between alacrity and pressure, right? Just you move along and don't delay. But but putting pressure on something creates the opposite effect of what you're trying to get.
Yeah. And what last message would you give as parents that really embody this idea where we are not in the waiting room, we're in the living room, and all the beautiful nuggets you've shared with us? What message would you give to a parent that's struggling to see their child as someone that they want to help to love and thrive right now, because all they can think about is, but they're single, but they're single, but they're single?
To me, it's not even a question. Like, it's a no-brainer. When it comes to me, when it comes to us, like, we cherish having our children home. We love their company. We love that they're still home with us. It is the biggest bracha that we have these extra years with them at home. Some kids are out of the house by the time they're 18, 19, 20, they're married, they're gone. Hashem gave us additional years to have them home with us. It's the biggest gift, and we cherish having them. We have never once looked at them and said, but they're still single, right? These, nebach, she needs a shidduch. What do those words even mean? She needs a shidduch, right? Nobody needs a shidduch. It would be very nice in the right time to find a person to spend the rest of your life with, but there's no desperation. Right? They're living their lives. We're living our lives. We're enjoying having them every single moment. What parents need to realize is, first of all, from your own perspective, what a gift it is to still have your children home with you and to still be able to have some sort of impact on them and inspire them and influence them in whatever way you can. Not educate them, influence them, right? At a certain point, we're not really educating anymore, right?
Yaffa Palti Academy coming to you soon.
But what a bracha it is, but also for our children. our children feel it. Our children feel if they're not really wanted in their home anymore, and if they're and if they're looked at every time they come down the stairs or walk into the front door, and they know they're going to be looked at as you're still here.
So that's
right?
why I really feel that one of the biggest things we can do as parents is to give our children, that's really where they need us, unconditional acceptance, which is not the same thing as unconditional love. We, of course, love them unconditionally. Unconditional acceptance is I accept you the way you are in the stage of life that you are. That's how I love you. That's how I care about you. And you know what? That's going to give our children self-esteem. And self-esteem is going to help them make the right decision. Choose the right person, make the right decision. You really need to empower them instead of making the decision for them, or, you're going to be able to empower them to make the better decision. And I feel personally, and I would leave it with this, that the reason why I was Zoiche to somebody really, I would say, above my league. And that is the fact that there was a lot of real tefillah, and there was L'Shem Shamayim kait.
Yes.
I really, didn't want to just get married. I wanted to really build a Jewish home that can give kavod to Hashem. There was something somewhere real over there, to whatever extent I was able to. So I think that's important. If we can combine those two things as parents, and we can really, davening is really our job to do on properly and have, good. I don't want to just, it's not just because people look at me and I don't want to be nebach and people say, oh, they have daughters or sons who are not married. It shouldn't be that. What you should want is you should want your children to be able to build Beit Ne'eman B'Yisrael. And if you really are able to do that and say that to Hashem, I think we have a good chance that it's going to work out.
And that's why my tefillah for our children is not only do I ask Hashem to please send them their zivugim in the right time, but I also daven that they should be ready to receive them in the right time, and that we all should have the clarity to know that they're the right people for them. Right? Yeah. Because it's all about, it's the tefillah. It's not a tefillah out of desperation. Please send them their zivug. Please, wait a minute. Right? Yes, please send them their zivug. It has to be, but also please make sure that they're ready to receive them. Right? And that we have the clarity to know if it's the right person. If it's not, give us the clarity to know it's not the right person without that pressure, without that desperation.
Yeah.
Right?
This episode's really life-changing on a micro and macro level, and I'm excited for everyone to hear it. I know originally we met as friends, and as you were talking, I thought I should have introduced you as Rebbe Sin and Rabbi Palti, and there's no greater description I can give to such beautiful people who have dedicated so much of their time, especially your time today, to share with us. So thank you so much for coming in.
It's our pleasure. And also, we are friends.
Thank you.
Lucky me.
Thank you so much for having us. It was such a pleasure and truly an honor.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching another episode of Stories of Hope with Yafa and Rabbi Nisso. I know there was so much to learn from this episode. If you're a child and you watch this, make sure your parent does too. This is one of those episodes that's going to alleviate anxiety, dismantle these toxic beliefs that are really not helping anyone that's living a life of fear. Once again, if you want a chance to win $200, then comment below what you are dressing up for Purim, someone you love, your child, your spouse, a costume you'd love to put on. Let us know in the comment section below. And as always, if you have a comment or suggestion, I love reading all of them. So reach out at soh@meaningfulminute.org. Can't wait to hear from you and can't wait to see you next week.